Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the June meeting of the Planning Commission. We are for agenda review, but prior to the agenda review meeting, we are going to call to order our annual meeting of the Planning Commission. And we're going to do a roll call to make sure that we have a quorum for that meeting. Dallas?
Yes. Commissioner Uten,
Here.
Commissioner Boyer,
Here.
Commissioner Huber,
Here.
Commissioner Shelso,
Here.
Commissioner Perez, Commissioner Browning,
Here.
Commissioner Higgins,
Here.
Commissioner Levinson, Commissioner Biggs, Commissioner Barger, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Midas, Commissioner Overton,
Here.
Commissioner Hill. That's 8 present, sir.
Okay, so we have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is the presentation of the fiscal year 23-24 major activities and the financial status. And Director Brooks, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Vice Chair Uten. Okay, so today I'll be sharing a brief presentation with you all, as I do every year, about what we've been working on over the past year. The Commission reviewed 524 cases over this past year. These numbers are comparable to the cases reviewed last year, though I'm sure it's no surprise to you that this count is up from previous years. Just on average, our staff review over 90 different types of applications. Obviously, you all only hear about half of those. Only half of those go to the Planning Commission. This is just a snapshot of some of the development activity that we have seen throughout the county last year. This topic is reported more extensively in our development activity report, which was recently released and should be available on our website. And we will do a presentation to you all at your next agenda review meeting in July. I try to keep you all updated on a monthly basis, so some of these project updates will hopefully sound familiar to you, but I'll just briefly go through them today. You know, we've been very busy over the last year, not just processing applications, but working on additional tasks related to significant projects for both the city and the county. One was the missing middle zoning amendments that we helped draft, and then of course advanced Knox, which was the county's new comprehensive land use and transportation plan, as well as updates to the growth policy plan. For some reason I've lost my mouse pad here. Hold on one second. So transportation planning highlights. The roadway safety action plan, we reported on this project last year, but we're happy to report that the TPO Executive Board adopted this plan last July. And so by completing and adopting it, the TPO and local member jurisdictions are now able to apply for federal funding. Mobility Plan 2050, we kicked that off as well. This plan will examine the current state of transportation in and around the Knoxville region and make recommendations for future investments. The first round of public engagement concluded in February of this year, and the next round is scheduled for the fall. The TPO successfully completed the federal certification review of the metropolitan planning, transportation planning and programming process. This happens every 4 years. Staff, I'm very pleased to say that they received praises for the organizational structure that we've set up for the TPO, performance-based planning, and that they undertake, as well as programming, and then how we manage our transportation improvement program. Staff from our Information Services Division continue to lend significant expertise to our local partners by providing content, design, and programming support for their websites. We also play an important role in the website support for the Knoxville Chamber, the Industrial Development Board, obviously the TPO, and then projects like Advanced Knox and Breathe. The Breathe project is a partnership with the City of Knoxville and planning, and we are partnering on it's called the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant for the Knoxville MSA. We've reported out on this previously, but we worked with them to develop a brand and a website, and we are working on their outreach program, and that will engage communities within our MSA, and that will result in a comprehensive climate action plan. We've also worked closely with the city of Knoxville on their housing strategy. We provided research and data management and support of that new strategy, and we'll continue to support them in their efforts. Our fees continue to exceed what we have budgeted, as evidenced by your agendas and the length of those. State and federal grants referenced here are administered by our transportation planning group, and the majority of these dollars, I know it encompasses a significant portion of this pie chart, the majority of those dollars are reallocated out to our partners throughout the region, and those are for specific projects as part of the TPO work program. As with most organizations, our employees are our greatest asset, and they are also our largest investment. Contracted services, listed up here in the kind of teal blue, light blue, those include legal services, public notices, equipment, data storage, software licensing, et cetera. Supplies and materials include food, computer equipment, office supplies, our 2 agency vehicles, and other charges that include space costs, financial and central services that we pay to Knox County. You know, we try to be a good steward of our dollars, and as a result of that, we've remained in solid financial standing this calendar year. And with that, that concludes my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Anybody? All right. We'll move on to item number 2, which is the election of the Planning Commission officers for chair and vice chair, and Commissioner Rich Levison is going to take over that presentation.
I'd like to make a recommendation that Commissioner Hill be chair for next year, and Commissioner Huber be vice chair for next year.
Okay. That's been brought forward, and I don't think we open, or do we?
You can have discussion and then a motion in a second.
Okay. So if there is any other discussion, we can have that now. If there is anybody else that has a substitute motion, I think we would consider that. All right. So nobody else have anything else to discuss, then we'll allow for a motion.
I move we approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Levinson, second by Nathaniel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Any other business? Seeing none, we will adjourn the annual meeting.
Huh?
Annual meeting.
We will turn it over to Executive Director Brooks for her report.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into this year's work program and budget. It's on your agenda for consideration. So I'll just take a few more minutes to go over our proposed budget. You have a copy of our work program in front of you, or you should, I believe. Okay, so for reference. So this work program has been reviewed by City Council, the county, city administration, as well as Knox County, and it has been recommended for approval by the Executive Committee. So we've organized our work program by city, county, and agency, and tasks are organized in the following manner. So we have prescribed and ongoing, and these are items we are obligated to perform on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And then we have something called prescribed reoccurring. And these items are items that we perform yearly or as needed, such as one-year plan would be an example of that. Actually, I'll run through some of these. So we, serving as an information resource on matters related to zoning, just as a matter of practice, we answer phone calls and emails every day about zoning, long-range planning, as well as other development applications. reviewing rezoning, subdivision development plans, and then we provide staff support to you all, as well as the Historic Zoning Commission, the Design Review Board, the TTCDA, and the Transportation Planning Organization. We provide mapping and website development, as I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, and data analysis and in-kind resources to our partner organizations. We also manage various local and regional transportation grants and programs. So those are just some of the things that are encompassed in those two areas that I mentioned on our work program. Special projects, these are projects that may be multi-year or shorter-term projects added at the request of the city or the county. And some of these might include, we are currently working on adding all TTCDA and Historic Zoning Commission and Design Review Board cases to the public-facing map like we have for Planning Commission cases. We plan to update and modernize downtown design review and infill housing guidelines. We're also working really closely with the city on code reviews, zoning code updates, and trying to make those more timely and efficient. Assisting in the successful administration and review of the middle housing ordinance amendments and developments that we hope to see come online. And then providing strategic planning support for projects such as reconnecting communities, the city's attainable housing strategy, CAT's implementation of the reimagined routes, and then, of course, the BREATHE project. So special projects identified for this year in the county are primarily centered around implementation of the new comprehensive land use and transportation plan. These can be found on pages 8 to 9. Those include items such as development of a new zoning code as part of the Unified Development Ordinance. We'll also be looking at the subdivision regulations and making sure that everything aligns with this new plan that we've adopted. We'll be conducting a historic resources inventory updates, looking at access management standards in partnership with Knox County, and then providing training and technical assistance around implementation measures that have been identified as part of this plan. So again, these are just a sample of things that we'll be working on, specifically in the county. So as you all know, our budget is driven by these projects, but also the day-to-day operating cost. So our revenues and expenditures each total approximately $8.1 million for the upcoming fiscal year, and this is a combination of a number of different sources. So local appropriations from the city and county are a very important part of a source of funding for us, and they equal about 31% of our budget. 18% of that comes from the city of Knoxville, and then 13% from the county. Both the city and county have provided generous increases to us for this upcoming fiscal year, and this is to fulfill our annual obligations, but also in recognition of the growing list of requests that we're receiving from them and the complexity of those requests, as well as the requests that come before you all. We estimate that our fee revenue will remain in the 8% range of total agency revenue. Again, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, applications have been up over the last year, and we anticipate that this trend will continue, so we'll monitor those. Grant reimbursements are down a little bit from last year. They comprise approximately 51% of our revenue. Again, as I mentioned, these dollars come from a variety of state and federal sources, and much of the work that we do is within the Transportation Planning Group is reimbursable. But it sounds like a big chunk of our revenues come from this, but approximately of that $4.1 million that we take in, $3.4 million is then going out. So again, we serve as a pass-through agency in support of our local partners, both here in Knox County, but across the region. We do plan to attempt to increase our staff over the next few months to help us execute what I think is a fairly ambitious work program, and then we'll be looking for opportunities as we have been over the last couple of years to grow our staff internally. We want to make sure that we retain talent and institutional knowledge here. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. All right. Just a couple quick announcements before I turn it over to staff. So next month, we would like to have a workshop with you all specifically about the Comprehensive Land Use and Transportation Plan. I mentioned this last month. And we'd like to provide some resources for you all to use as you're reviewing cases related to amending that plan. You will be seeing the first amendments come forward in August. So a couple dates that I'm looking at is Tuesday, July 9th, which is your agenda review. If we could start a little bit earlier at 10 a.m. Or Wednesday, July 17th at 9 a.m. I know I can send out a larger doodle poll to everybody, but I would like to ask if anybody has any concerns about coming a little bit earlier to agenda review. I hate to ask you all to come to a third meeting in a month because I know you're already here twice a month. Okay, that's fine. Okay, great. We'll get that scheduled. So now I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to go over 6C24OB. These are amendments to the subdivision regulations.
Thank you, Amy. Staff is proposing amendments to the current version of the subdivision regulations. These were most recently adopted in April of 2024, but following the adoption of those amendments, we discovered a few inconsistencies that require some correction. Additionally, a few surveyors had questions about some of the intent of some of the sections, and so we've made some modifications to clarify any confusion. You do have a list of every amendment within your packet. However, today we're just going to provide a brief review of some of the more important amendments. If you guys have any questions about any of the other ones, I'm happy to answer those. So if you have any questions or want any more in-depth information, the staff memo and the actual track changes version is within the packet. Okay, so diving in, item number 4 on your memo, staff discovered a discrepancy in 2 sections of the subdivision regulations regarding when access easement maintenance agreements must be approved. So section 3.03I, which is up on your screen now, requires approval of the agreement document by the law department prior to plat certification. However, when you look at section 2.10C1, regarding incomplete final plats to be reviewed by the Planning Commission, it currently requires all relevant corrections, certifications, verifications, and approvals to be approved by the appropriate law department prior to the plat being considered by the Planning Commission. And that would include, of course, the law department's approval of the maintenance agreement. So to correct this inconsistency, the wording in section 2.10C1G was revised to eliminate the requirement for access easement maintenance agreements to be approved prior to plat corrections deadline and instead comply with the legal documentation section. The next one is item 7 on the memo. The city of Knoxville has different requirements for when a subdivision must be tied to their survey control system. This is based on the number of lots in the subdivision and distances from an approved control point. So there's a phrase in section 2.10 F2B that was changed during the last amendments, and it said from shall be required, and then we changed it to may be required. However, this caused some confusion. Multiple surveyors contacted the city about the change, and so we are now revising it back to say shall, unless tied to the system, unless deemed otherwise by the city's Department of Engineering. So it still allows them to not require it in certain cases, but that determination will be made by engineering. Next is item number 8. So we received a few comments pertaining to the requirements for referencing adjacent landowners on plats. Several surveyors noted the requirements could have unforeseen consequences depending on the number of adjoining owners and additional text needed on the plat. So we've revised this section to align with the surveyor's standards of practice, which will simplify the information that's required to be shown. So next, and this one's kind of a big one, this is items number 9, 16 through 21, and 24 on the memo. This was a change made to Article 3, Section 3.03 regarding access standards. So this was done in conjunction with the city's engineering department and county's engineering department. So they're both partnered with us on this. This amendment proposes to replace the 3 easement types we currently have. So we have an exclusive permanent access easement and a shared permanent access easement that both serve residential properties, and a permanent cross-access easement that currently served commercial. So we are proposing to sort of merge all of those together and just basically use the requirements that are found within the shared permanent access easement, but just change that to be just called an access easement. So that more generic term will now have the same criteria as the SPAY or the shared permanent access easement, and it can be used for commercial and residential properties. Like the shared permanent access easement, it could only serve up to 5 lots. Once you hit 6 lots, you'd have to do a private right-of-way. So as I said, it can be used for both commercial and residential, but with residential, that is for single-family homes, duplexes, and townhomes only, and that's up to 10 dwelling units. And so we are hoping, as are the city and the county, that the creation of a singular term will be simpler for surveyors and for attorneys preparing legal documentation. And with that, we are recommending approval of the proposed amendments with an effective date of June 14th, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I actually do have one question, and all those changes look great. I think it's a great direction. And this might be a question for Joshua in the city. We, I guess over the last 6 months or so, I was involved in a development, and I don't know if it's addressed in this or in another section of the city code, specifically with respect to shared access easements as space. Joshua, do you remember what I'm talking about? We had a regular subdivision, and we had a shared access easement that came off of that allows for 5 lots, as we know in here. But there was something buried in the city code. I don't know if it was in this document or another city document that required all of the houses that were accessed off of that easement. So if you can imagine a T, here's the main road of the subdivision, then there's a shared access easement that comes off in a 90-degree angle, and it required all of the houses to face the main road. So you would what we ended up with was 5 houses off of this shared access easement that were all, stacked sideways, if you will, from it, again. And we worked through it, but it was through an arduous Board of Zoning appeals, and then had to appeal it again to the city council. It was just a lot of consternation. And in looking at it, I think the general feel from the city was, yeah, maybe that was something that kind of slipped through the cracks when we were originally doing it. So my ultimate question is that addressed here in this document, or is it a different document that forces that to happen in the city?
Right, so I'm familiar with the project that you're talking about. That is in the zoning ordinance, the requirement for all houses to face the street, and I think just not anticipating that something like that would be built with that many houses going that deep into a property. So we are working on an ordinance amendment to address when multiple lots use an access easement, so that those houses can face the access easement instead of the street. So that's going to be coming. I believe we've postponed it a couple of times now, so it'll be on the July agenda. So you all should see that soon.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for the clarification. I just didn't see anything in there about it. I just wanted to make sure it was being addressed.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Michelle. So now we will turn over to Samuel for 5K24RZ. Staff has recommended density that's lower than what is being requested by the applicant.
Excuse me. This partial rezoning is for approximately 86 acres of the 156-acre property along Tipton Station Road. Bonnicate Elementary is located less than 1 mile to the east, and Governor John Sevier Highway is located to the north. Like Amy mentioned, the applicant requested 5 dwelling unit, although in a letter uploaded to the planning website, they now want 4 dwelling unit per acre. The immediate area is predominantly zoned agricultural, although there are several residential developments within 2 miles with the Pearson close to Bonnicate Elementary and South Doyle High School. The subject portion of the parcel is located within the planned growth area boundary, even though the other portion of the parcel that is not part of this rezoning falls within the rural area. While the sector plan was the active plan at the time of the request, the property has the rural conservation place type right now. This allows consideration of the Pearson with a density up to 5 dwelling unit per acre. The general development pattern consists of small lot, detached houses, and single-family subdivisions along Tipton Station Road with undeveloped lands further away from the street. So from the aerial view, you can see that the area near the school are more developed than the area adjacent to the subject property. I'll turn on my pointer. So this is Bonnicate Elementary, and this were South 12 High School. The portion being rezoned is relatively flat. The portion south of the creek has steep slope, but is not included in this request. Leaving the rear portion is consistent with the comprehensive plan's implementation policy 7, which encourages development practices that conserve natural features. Staff recommends approving the PR zone with up to 2 dwelling unit per acre, since this would be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The PR zone is supported by the rural conservation place type. The recommended density of 2 dwelling unit per acre considers the accessibility and surrounding developments. Along Tipton Station Road, the nearest property with 5 dwelling unit per acre is next to South 12 High School, and that has been developed, yielding a density of only 2.56 dwelling unit per acre. Other nearby properties with PR at 3 and 4 dwelling units per acre are closer to those schools and have sidewalk connections, as you can see with the red lines in this map. The property have frontage for only one potential access point. With these considerations, the recommended density of 2 dwelling unit per acre is more appropriate for this property. Any questions?
Okay, looks like there's no questions. We'll move on to agenda item number 21. Staff is recommending denial of the request to go from ag to commercial.
So this property is along Thorngrove Pike. Like Amy mentioned, we're recommending denial of the CN zone. The area is predominantly zoned agricultural. There is a series of CA zone properties on the south side of the road. However, majority of these properties have not been developed as commercial uses. And KGIS aerial view indicate that no new commercial development has been added to this area in the past 10 years. The property is located in the rural area designation of the growth policy plan. The CN zone is partially related. Okay. So it has the rural living place type, which lists the CN zone as partially related. Partially related means that the zone can be considered in some locations with the place type, but we think that at this location it is not appropriate. In the existing land use map, we can see that most of the commercially zoned properties are developed as residential, even though they're zoned CA. According to the historical images on KGIS going back to 20 years, there have not been any substantial changes in the area, which warrants the proposed amendment. The area remains rural in character and is primarily composed of houses on larger than half-acre lots. And there are undeveloped forested lands away from the street, as you can see on this map, that has remained undeveloped. So we recommend denial because the request does not meet all the conditions of a rezoning. The zoning ordinance states that CN zone should generally be located at street intersections and as close to the edge of a neighborhood as possible. The property is located neither at an intersection nor at the edge of an established neighborhood. Furthermore, it can be argued that the area does not have enough residential density to warrant any more commercially zoned properties. The East County plan identifies this road as rural corridor, which recommends limiting infrastructure expansion on this corridor to preserve the rural look and feel. We think that the addition of another commercially zoned parcel would constitute encroachment into this rural residential area. And in this street view, you can see that the property has thick vegetations in the front, except for this driveway. You cannot really see the entire property from the street.
Yeah, Samuel, that string of commercial properties to the south, were you able to find what the history on those were? Like when and why those were done that way?
I think I looked at them. They have been zoned CA for a long time. I don't think I've seen any rezoning cases for this.
Okay.
So if there are no other questions, I'll move on to the next one.
Yes, go ahead, to the next one. Next one's a city case.
So item 51 is a city rezoning from IH to CH1. The floodplain overlay would be retained. We are recommending approval, so I'm going to keep the presentation short, but if you have any questions, we can look at KGIS. The property has the Gateway Corridor Mixed-Use District land use classification, which supports this rezoning. As you're probably familiar with this site, it's north of 5th Street and west of I-275. The entire area is about 11.26 acres. The existing IS zoning district is not reflective of the subject property's current land use that has been vacant for about the last 10 years. As for changing condition, the city completed a $5.5 million road expansion improvement project along the western boundary of this project. This include completing Marion Street from 5th Avenue to Barnard Avenue, and then creating a 10-foot greenway from 5th Avenue up to Baxter Avenue and other road improvements. The property has multiple potential access points as it fronts on 3 streets. It is close to other commercial districts in downtown. The multi-use stadium is less than 1 mile to the east. The former industrial site has brownfield status. Any new development would be required to comply with appropriate TDEC guidelines during the permitting process. This is essentially a down zoning from the heavy industrial district, which is less likely to produce any negative environmental impacts. With all of this context, staff recommends approval of the CH1 zoning district. This would allow reusing this brownfield site.
I don't think this case is loading on the website currently.
Yeah, I can't, there's no staff recommendation on the link to a staff recommendation on the website.
And it's on the Google Drive you shared yesterday, but
It is, yeah, and I apologize. Our website went down yesterday, as you all know. It's a rare occurrence for us. So I know there might be some glitches as it gets back online.
I was going to ask about, in the sector plan, it lists out community mixed-use center, light industrial, general commercial, office, and MDR, medium-density residential. And I know our sector plans are a little bit dated in terms of some of them, the terminology not always lining up perfectly with what we adopted with RECODE. So are we interpreting just the general commercial as falling within that CH, commercial highway, falls within general commercial?
Yes,
Is
that would
that-
be correct, as well as the MDR, because it does allow residential development as well.
Okay. Yeah, I've got some other comments that are more deliberation for Thursday, but how many CH zonings have we seen, like rezone requests, sort of within the sort of central city sector plan? We don't see many of those, right? Do we have any data? Any idea?
No, we don't. We can look into it, but we don't have that readily available. Any other questions? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Well, we'll move on to agenda item number 62.
That would also be me. And this is my last one.
We've given him all the challenging ones this month.
So the request is for a third sign in the CG1 district. The subject property is located at the intersection of Rutledge Pike and Timothy Avenue. Kenjo Markets recently demolished their convenience store and gas pump at this location, and now they're planning to construct a new gas pump and a new convenience store. This would also include a Hardee's restaurant. As part of this development, the applicant would like to retain the two existing pole signs, the tall shell sign one and this one, and replace the third sign that you can see on the back with a new sign for Hardee's. The CG1 district generally allows one detached sign per street frontage up to a maximum of 2 detached signs per parcel or lot. Additional signs may be permitted in the district subject to approval by the Planning Commission. The CN1 zone under which the property was initially developed also allowed a maximum of 2 signs with no provision for any exception. Even though the number of signs was not in compliance with the previous zoning ordinance, a permit for a third sign was issued for this property in 2002, and therefore the third sign has always been a legal nonconformity. Article 17.2.a says that use of a nonconforming sign may continue to be used except when the use of the property changes. In this case, since the old structure is demolished and there is going to be new business and change in use with the addition of restaurant, the 3 pole signs must be brought to the standard of the zoning ordinance. Therefore, the city's plans review and inspection department has determined that the third sign requires Planning Commission approval. So the third sign will replace the sign we have seen. It will be located in here. It's basically a sign for Hardee's.
Is this supposed to be in the same position that the current one is?
So the current one does not meet the setback requirement, but the proposed one will meet it. So more context on that actually. So this tall sign is over height. It does not meet the height requirement. They pursued a BZA variance which was denied. So now they would either have to remove it or change the height. The second one, initially it seemed to be non-conforming, but then the applicant provided new survey, and it looks like that it is conforming based on the new survey provided. The third sign is also non-conforming, but with the proposed replacement, it would meet the setback requirement.
You said, so it won't meet the setback, but it is in the same position, just it'll be closer to the
Yeah.
building, is that right?
Yeah, it would have more setback, but it would be in the general same location of this sign. And then this will remain as is, and the tall one either needs to be replaced or be removed.
Is the Hardee's, it's a separate building?
It's the same building. Actually, that's a one of our rationale for recommending denial. So the zoning ordinance says that additional signs may be approved if the sign is essential due to multiple structures or unusual topography or building location. So in this case, it's just one single structure, as you can see on this site plan.
Thank you.
And there are no topographical challenge or building location challenge. And we think that the existing signs can potentially be modified to include a signage for Hardee's. The other consideration is that this needs to be consistent with the surrounding area. The surrounding property has multiple commercially zoned properties, even though only a few developed as commercial, and no other properties has more than 2 signs. In fact, from street view, from what I gathered, no other properties has more than 1 signs.
So both of the other two have to be modified, right? Neither of them are conforming, and so with the new use, they're both going to have to be changed?
Yes, the tall one needs to be changed.
Yeah.
With the new survey, this middle shell one can remain as is.
Even though it doesn't meet the setback?
We initially thought that, but then the applicant provided a survey to the plans review and inspection, and they confirmed that it now meets the setback requirement.
And I know you said that most don't have more than 1. Did I hear you say there is a limitation to the number of signs?
There is, under the current ordinance, it's 2 per lot maximum, and Planning Commission may approve additional signs.
Okay.
Under the previous zoning ordinance, it was 2 maximum with no exceptions, but a 3rd permit was still issued.
Okay.
And under this, where would the Hardee's sign go? Where would it be?
So it would replace this one.
This
So it would be next to their proposed driveway.
Okay.
So at this location.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We will move on to agenda item number 23, excuse me. 6L24RZ. This request has generated a lot of public comment. The applicant is requesting up to 8 dwelling units per acre. Turn over to Ms. Hillman.
Yes, so this is approximately a 50-acre property located at 11326 Sam Lee Road in Hardin Valley, west of Pellissippi State Community College. The request is to rezone from agricultural to planned residential with a density of up to 8 dwelling units per acre. The rear line of this property abuts the Hardin Valley Elementary School, Middle School, and High School complex to the south. Sam Lee Road is an 18-foot wide major collector street that connects to the minor arterial of Hardin Valley Road to the south via Steel Road, which is a minor collector, to the west. With the zoning map, you can see that there are numerous PR zone properties and/or residential subdivisions in the vicinity, including on the east and west sides of the subject property. The requested density of 8 dwelling units per acre would be the highest in the vicinity, which currently caps at 4.5 dwelling units per acre. You can see that there is a node of commercial zoning nearby to the south at the intersection of Steel Road and Hardin Valley Road. And there is significant agricultural zoning throughout this area as well. The property east of the subject lot was recently rezoned to planned residential, and County Engineering and Public Works is in conversations with that owner to gain right-of-way access to provide a more gradual curve that would replace that sharp 90-degree turn on Sam Lee Road. Do my little laser. So that's right here. The PR zone permits clustered development, which is intended as a response to environmental constraints on a property. This lot has numerous closed contours of varying sizes. It's kind of hard to tell, but this is a big one. And there's many others on the property. These closed contours may indicate the presence of sinkholes. There may also be a spring on the site, as indicated by this USGS map. And these conditions support consideration of the PR zone for residential development. The place type for this property and a significant amount of surrounding properties shown in brown is TN, traditional neighborhood. This place type is intended for a mix of housing ranging from single-family to townhouses to multifamily buildings. It should have a walkable block pattern and a mix of housing types within the neighborhood. There should be access to other amenities like parks and schools as well. These areas are typically connected to a mixed-use center, and you can see that there is a node of town center mixed use and corridor mixed use place types along Hardin Valley Road to the south. The PR zone with a density of up to 24 dwelling units per acre can be considered in the traditional neighborhood place type. As you can see in the aerial map, this property currently functions as farmland. There is a picture of the property from Sam Lee Road on the bottom right. Many properties in this area remain active farms, but as we know, there is a sweeping transition of land use towards residential development occurring here with a population increase. This area is on the edge of the planned growth boundary, as shown in that yellow tent. This used to be on the edge of the planned growth boundary to the west as well, but now you can see that much of that area is also designated for planned growth with the new growth policy plan. And the areas north of Sam Lee Road are designated rural. This property has unique access to numerous residential amenities which support its traditional neighborhood land use. In addition to its adjacent proximity to a major public education hub with modern sports fields, it's about 700 feet from Steel Road to the west, and Steel Road provides sidewalks along almost the entirety of its path down to Hardin Valley Road, which also has sidewalks. And you'll see a map of this on the next slide. These sidewalks lead to the schools as well as a commercial node at the corner of Steel and Hardin Valley, which is shown in the bottom of this slide. You can see there's a grocery store, a Goodwill, a gas station, and there's additional commercial development that's underway. Staff are recommending approval of this rezoning request because it is consistent with the traditional neighborhood place type in the planned growth area. At maximum intensity, 398 dwelling units could be permitted here under the requested zoning. Development of that scale would trigger a level 2 traffic impact analysis, and roadway improvements, including sidewalks, could be required. There may be opportunity for connectivity with the school as well. This would be compatible with the Hardin Valley Mobility Plan, which highlights roadway expansion and multimodal aspirations for Sam Lee Road. The PR zone would enable development that is responsive to the environmental conditions on the site as described, and the requested density is supported by access to amenities like existing sidewalks, crosswalk infrastructure, the school hub, and the service-oriented commercial node along that arterial of Hardin Valley. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't know if, Ms. Hillman, if you know this, or maybe if engineering knows, so like the process of connecting to that school access road, I know we've had pedestrian connections to some school properties in the past, but what's the, because if this piece of land connects to that school access road, that's really where the sidewalk connectivity exists to get to Steel Road, right? Without that, they'd have to go all the way around up on Sam Lee, right?
Right, so there's only a minor gap of sidewalk along Steel here and then here. But yes, you're right, that there is existing sidewalk right at the rear of the property, and I'm not sure what that conversation would look like about school access.
Okay, because that would seem to be a really good connection.
Agreed.
Okay, well, I guess we'll move on to the next one. Agenda item number 25.
So this county rezoning case is for a 4-acre parcel located at 8813 Ball Camp Pike. This minor arterial street will soon become Shad Road once this active phase of capital improvement is complete. The rezoning request, oops. The rezoning request is to maintain the PR zone, but increase the density from 5 to 12 dwelling units per acre. You can see that Ball Camp Elementary School is nearby to the southwest, and there's a expansive park system across Shad Road as well. Which includes a walking trail and a playground and numerous sports fields. As you can see, there is significant PR zoning in this area with densities ranging from 2.5 to 9 dwelling units per acre. This is amidst a significant amount of agricultural zoning as well. And there is a commercial zone corridor along Ball Camp, Byington Road, and Middlebrook Pike. This property has 2 place types. Most of it is suburban mixed residential, but the northwest corner is rural conservation, and that's kind of tied to a much broader rural conservation area where it's very hilly and forested. The suburban mixed residential place type is intended to be similar to single-family suburban development, but with a greater mix of housing types that include attached like townhouses and small-scale multifamily housing. Future developments should emphasize, connectivity, and there should be walkable access to parks and bikeable access to commercial areas. PR zoning up to 12 can be considered here. With the Shad Road expansion, there will be new sidewalks that provide the kind of accessibility described in this place type. The rural conservation place type corresponds to the more forested steep slope area of the property, and it's about the maximum PR density permitted in the rural conservation place type is 5 dwelling units per acre, which is consistent with its existing zoning. Staff excluded the rural conservation area from this rezoning consideration, which is about 2/3 of an acre. The property does have significant slopes and some undisturbed forest to the west and north. The PR zone allows development that's clustered in the more optimal and previously cleared areas of the property. You can see that the Shad Road expansion is underway, which will provide multimodal accessibility to the school and commercial opportunities to the southwest. Staff are recommending approval of the PR zone up to 12 in the suburban mixed residential place type, which is about 3.4 acres of the 4-acre property. The new Shad Road corridor will serve as an east-west connector from Kingston Pike at Lovell Road to I-75 at Callahan Drive. The roadway will include 4 12-foot travel lanes separated by a 30-foot raised median, 4-foot bike lanes on the outside shoulders, and 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the roadway. And you can see that that sidewalk infrastructure is coming towards the subject property in this photo. The major improvements support an increase in residential intensity as it provides multimodal access to an elementary school and future commercial corridor to the southwest. This property is also across from those numerous recreational amenities with Nicholas Ballpark and Ball Camp Park. There was I think one person spoke out in opposition to this for fear of environmental consideration issues, and we're also recommending a slight difference than what was requested by only permitting or recommending approval for the suburban mixed residential place type, not rural conservation. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we will move this over to Mr. Reynolds. First case we'll be discussing is agenda item number 12. There's been obviously a number of comments, public comments on this one, Thunder Mountain Properties. And staff has recommended a density that's less than what was requested.
Sorry, I need to change locations. Our cord is not long enough to come over to me. So.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so this is 1K24RZ Thunder Mountain. This was postponed from January, earlier this year. And so this is let me get on my pointer here. So there's two associated rezonings. The other rezoning is being postponed until next month. That's here to the southeast of this property. It's all on the same parcel, so I just want to point that out, that there's a separate rezoning application on the same parcel. It has more frontage on, or has frontage on Chapman Highway, as well as Evans Road on the east side. And they're requesting CA zoning, general business there. Like I said, that'll be, it's being postponed to next month because it requires a plan amendment. They had to change their request from a sector plan amendment to a plan amendment based on the new comprehensive plan. So back to this rezoning, they're requesting planned residential up to 3 dwelling units per acre. The current zoning on the property is RA and agricultural. It's approximately 103 acres in size. Staff is recommending planned residential up to 2 dwelling units per acre, subject to 2 conditions. No clearing or grading of the site until development plan is approved by the Planning Commission, and the land disturbance within the HP Hillside Protection Area shall not exceed the recommended disturbance budget of the slope analysis based on the area of the development identified during the development plan review, unless approved by the Planning Commission. So that kind of gives a little bit of an out. The intent there is to really try to maintain disturbance within the recommendations of the slope analysis, but it does give the ability of the Planning Commission to consider alternative land disturbance. Real quickly, just wanted to breeze through the existing land use in the area. See, it's largely agricultural, rural residential. There is some minor pockets of commercial. There are a lot of public, quasi-public, which is the blue, and some industrial off to the east. Just reference, just in case you're not familiar with the site, this is down in the Seymour area, so it's really close to the Knox County border. Zoning, again, so in the general area is mainly agricultural. There is some strip zoning of CA along Chapman Highway. A lot of that is not used for commercial purposes at this time. Like a lot of our older commercial corridors, they just got the CA zoning or some commercial zoning a long time ago, X feet off of the roadway, probably like 200 feet, 300 feet, just kind of all up and down the stretch. So you see a lot of commercial, but not a lot of it is used for commercial. The OB you see there is a church, and I think it's a cemetery. I think the church is in the agricultural, so the OB is a cemetery. Just a quick overview of the site with the aerial. You see it's largely vegetated. And I just want to point out, so this is a different view. It's kind of a changed view. Chapman Highway is on the lower side here. It's kind of show how steep this property is, and it's got this large kind of ridge feature in the middle. But these two properties, I just want to point out, it's not part of this request. They are owned separately, so kind of a donut hole in the middle of their the property owned by Thunder Mountain. The comprehensive plan designation is primarily TN, which is the traditional neighborhood. It does have a little bit of town center mixed use, or mixed town center mixed use in the western side of the corner of the property. As we discussed before, the traditional neighborhood land use recommends a mixture of use types, are primarily single-family, attached, multifamily is a secondary use, and commercial is secondary. It talks about being in walkable areas near other things like parks and commercial establishments. There is a park currently on the adjacent, or on this parcel, but in the CA portion of the property, which is Bowers Fields. But like I said, that property is under consideration for rezoning as well. There is a shopping center, small shopping center across the street. I do anticipate, there was an expansion of CA zoning, again, associated with the same property owner. So I would anticipate, further commercial sometime in the future, but we just don't, it's not there yet. So getting to the staff recommendation of 2 dwellings per acre, this site does have a lot of topography on it. Majority of the site is within the hillside protection area and does have quite steep slopes. As pointed out in the staff report, so like I said, the site is about 103 acres. 79 acres is in the hillside protection area. There's another 6.2 acres in the stream protection area. Of the acres in the hillside protection, 31.9 acres is 25 to 40% slopes, and 25.5 acres is 40% or greater. So that's 72, almost 73% of the hillside protection area is over 25%, and that's about 44% of the entire site is over 25%. So this was a big factor in staff's consideration for the density, as well as the condition to limit disturbance and to require development plan review before grading permits are issued, before the site's cleared. Just to give a couple ideas on sizes of area, this is about 17 acres. The hillside protection area, the slope analysis recommends about 22 acres of disturbance within the HP area only, excluding areas like this up here that's not within the hillside protection. So this is about 17 acres less than what the hillside protection area would allow to be disturbed. Sorry, the slope analysis would allow it to be disturbed. And at first glance, that's like the area that I would assume would be most prime for residential development. I'm sure there's other little pockets, but
Any
with
questions?
sorry, I'm going to say with the 2 dwellings per acre, that's about 202 dwelling units based on the acreage of the site. There's, if you're familiar with Chapman Highway, there's improvements going on right now and have been done in this area. If you have any questions, I can answer those. But the 2 other side streets that they could connect to, White School Road and Evans Road, are both substandard, and if any significant amount of additional trips go along those roads, I'm sure will require improvements. Any questions?
Looks like there's no, oh, you have
I'm sorry, what happened when they came before us the last time? Where did it end
For this site or for the other ones?
for this site?
We never discussed it. They requested postponement before it even was
Before you
heard.
came before us? Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we're going to move on to agenda item number 35. Staff is recommending postponement on this one, primarily due to incomplete submittal. County Commission, I'm sure Mr. Reynolds will cover this, but County Commission did, as a condition of approval of the rezoning, require that a landscape plan be submitted, and the applicant would like to be heard.
Yes. This is a request for 113 detached residential houses. This property was rezoned in March 2024. It was previously zoned RAE, which is an exclusive residential, planned residential, and planned commercial. So it was approved for 4 dwelling units per acre, subject to 6 conditions. Just real quick, the 35-foot peripheral setback has to be maintained along Briar Glen and Suburban Hills subdivisions. The applicant is not requesting peripheral setback reduction on any portion of this development, so the 35-foot peripheral is staying. No stub-out connections to Briar Glen or Suburban Hills, which is not happening here. They are providing 2 stub-outs to different properties, which happen to be owned by the same people who are purchasing the properties from, or this property from, but not connecting to the adjacent subdivisions. Condition number 3 is regarding the landscaping screen required. So basically along the Briar Glen subdivision, which is to the south, an evergreen Screening is required. You can read the condition if you want to, but it's basically one evergreen tree every 12 feet along that southern boundary is what it boils down to. A traffic study is required that has been submitted and reviewed. The entrance will be from Ebenezer Road, which it is, and they are to include a landscape plan. And that's the piece that we don't have yet, is the landscape plan. So there's 2 alternative design standards that they're requesting. Technically, there's more to it, but there's 4. 2 of them are by the Planning Commission, or for the Planning Commission approval, which is to increase the road grades of Road B to 13.8% and Road C to 15. So Road B is this first road that comes up, and then Road C is this one here. And the next one, which is a increase of intersection grade, are both engineering-related alternative design standards, and they're to increase the intersection grade at both Road B and C at Road A to 2%. With a 2% intersection grade, they can still install ADA-compliant crosswalks if sidewalks are installed. This plan does include a sidewalk on the north side of Road A to the intersection of Road B, and will also have a sidewalk along its own frontage of Ebenezer Road. That's per the Knox County Sidewalk Ordinance. Other road improvements, according to the traffic study, is to lengthen the turn lane on Ebenezer Road at Kingston Pike. So this would be the right turn lane onto Kingston Pike. Kind of hard to see in this image, but basically there's not a lot of space between Kingston Pike and a creek crossing here in this culvert bridge with this guardrail. So there's discussion of how best to handle this. They cannot install a turn lane per general engineering standards without really getting into the creek and extending the culvert and everything else, so the bridge. So the county is working with the developer to find out what's the best solution there. I think they've kind of know what the best solution there, basically to stay out of the floodway, try to keep everything on the north side of the creek, and but that'll be worked out in more detail during the design plan phase. So we'll get an extension of the turn lane, but it may not be to the full engineering standard that we would get, but it's something everybody's comfortable with where we're going to get to. Other considerations, this is not shown on the plan either. The 2 circled areas, staff is recommending that instead of a temporary T turnaround be provided at the ends of Road A and B, that a cul-de-sac be provided, temporary cul-de-sac be provided, because we've seen that sometimes these roads don't continue on either ever or for a very long time. And having a T turnaround at the end of roads with these many houses is not ideal. You think about all the delivery trucks and trash trucks and general vehicles that come down these roads on a daily basis, weekly basis. A cul-de-sac is definitely more ideal. Unfortunately, the problem with the cul-de-sac, it does have a 10% grade maximum. Even though they're temporary, we feel that they still should request a variance for that to lower the, because right now Road B has a 13+% grade, and then Road A has a 11.75% grade, I believe. So they're both above 10. We feel the Planning Commission should approve a variance to reduce that, or to increase the maximum road grade of a cul-de-sac from 10% to whatever the road grade is. Their intent is to obviously for that road to continue on. We want to make sure that that's still feasible. We don't want to make it more challenging by requiring that lower 10% grade. Other 2 items, there's 2 roads in the Briar Glen subdivision that basically kind of extend out into the subject site. It's a little bit. The one on the east side actually has a small little turnaround. We're asking that they provide a little bit of right-of-way around these road stubs just to get the public road into right-of-way as needed. On this eastern one, that we need enough right-of-way so the county can put a second leg on that T turnaround and make that function better. So in that case, we're not asking you, we're just asking for the right-of-way, and the county will construct the extra leg of that turnaround. On the other one, it's just really providing the right-of-way around the road. Existing land use, if you care to look into some more detail, we can. Zoning on the property is pretty consistent with surrounding developments. And the place type on the property, I just want to point this out real quick. So during the rezoning phase, of course, this was before the comprehensive plan was adopted, the whole site where the plan for this subdivision was changed to low-density residential. That all happened really close to the time that the comprehensive plan was adopted, and what was planned commercial zoned, and I think had the office land use on it, got flipped to the business park land use, but the whole change of sector plan to comprehensive plan just didn't transition properly. So this will be cleaned up soon as a staff process, but just wanted to let you know that when I reviewed this, I really reviewed it under the suburban residential SR land use for the entire thing. So even though the BP business park zone, land use or place type does allow consideration of residential, so in reality, it's not out of compliance with that place type either. So the suburban residential, the primary use is single family, which is being proposed here. Lots with lots smaller than 1 acre, which is being proposed. There's really not too much out of alignment with this request. It does talk about being within close proximity to service uses and being along arterials for larger, or collectors for larger subdivisions. As we've already discussed, the staff recommendation is to postpone until July because of the lack of meeting all the conditions of the rezoning.
Hey, Mike, just so I'm clear, was there some sort of communication breakdown in the preliminary meeting between you guys and the applicant about the need for the landscaping plan, or was it part of the comments that you would generally get? Or what, or did they think it would be a staff approval prior to the development plan being, or the design plan being approved? Do you know what the issue was?
It was part of the staff comments. I will say that there was when I gave staff comments originally, I asked for a landscape plan that was done by a professional landscape architect. In further discussions with the applicant, we decided that it probably wasn't necessary based on the explicitness of the condition, but we still needed a landscape plan. So we're, kind of left up to them to get it submitted.
Just a follow-up on that too, though, because I think you said that on the plan on the south side in that 35-foot setback, you're requiring trees every 12 feet, or is that a Class A, B, or C buffer, or is it just
it's closer to Class B, I would think. It doesn't require the staggered trees like a Class A would.
I guess that's why, to dovetail on that, if we're requiring that buffer and it's already defined, why do we need a landscape plan along with that?
Because it was a condition of approval by county commission. It's not our requirement that we've put on the applicant, it's that it was a condition of approval from county commission.
Okay.
And
But
county
the-
commission added the requirement that it cannot connect to the adjacent subdivisions, right?
Right. But my question is, if they just say that Class B buffer is our submittal of the landscaping plan,
Right.
what else would they have to provide from a supplement standpoint, I guess was my question.
I would say a lot of it I'd say some of it has to do with the comfort level of the adjacent property owners knowing what's going to be installed. Some people are very visual and they want to see it on a plan. I'm not sure if that was the intent of the requirement for landscape plan, but I know if I was an adjacent property owner, I would like to see what what it is, even if it is pretty simple plan, I would like to see that.
But obviously, staff would not ask for anything more than the Class B buffer that's spelled out in the ordinance or the subregs, right?
In this kind of condition, I mean, rarely would we require a type A landscape screening between two residential detached subdivisions.
Yeah. And also, we would defer to Knox County engineering, to Mr. Elliott's team, in terms of making sure that can, because they would be the ones that would need to make sure that that condition was actually met. Any other questions? All right. We'll move on to, I want to try to get us out here. We have 9 more minutes left before the 1 o'clock. We try to get you all out at 1. We have 2 more agenda items, item number 36 and 46.
Yeah, I'll make 36 pretty quick if in that case. So you may be familiar with the Lantern Park subdivision on Hardin Valley Road. It's closer to the western edge of Hardin Valley before it turns into Hickory Creek. It's been through this board or commission 2 times prior for concept plan approval. There was one in 2021 for 18 lots, another in 2022 that was for 26 that was ultimately withdrawn in December 2023. The main portion of the subdivision was platted this year with, I assume it was 18 lots. They're coming back with a request for 7. That makes sense. So 18 lots to 7 plus 7 lots in this phase 2, which give them a total of 25 lots. The gross density of the site would then be 2.82 dwelling units per acre. The property is zoned planned residential to 3 dwelling units per acre. As part of this request, they're also modifying the original stormwater plan. So basically, I'll show this in a bit more detail in a second, but there was 2 ponds anticipated for Lantern Park. Both of them kind of flanked Lantern Park Lane, which is the main road coming into Lantern Park subdivision, one towards the front at Hardin Valley and one towards the back at the cul-de-sac. They're proposing to remove the 2, or I guess combine the 2 detention ponds into one along Mission Hill Lane towards the northeast part of the site. The property at the front of Lantern Park near Hardin Valley, they're proposing 2 lots there, and then 5 lots along Mission Hill Lane. The Mission Hill Lane lots will have access directly from Mission Hill Lane. The other 2 will have access from their internal road, Lantern Park Lane. This is just showing what the phase 1 was platted previously, the detention pond in front, detention pond in the back. You see in this aerial, so that's where the house is currently being constructed. The new detention pond is back here. We can go through the place type if you care to, but this suburban mixed residential does allow a substantial amount of density within and I don't really have anything too much to note other than single family is permissible here. It does talk about connections for multimodal. The sidewalk is being proposed on Mission Hill Lane, and there's a sidewalk to Lantern Park Lane. So the staff recommendation is to approve, subject to conditions, and then I just wanted to make one note. Condition is to move mail kiosk that is located on Mission Hill Lane to Lantern Park Lane. It's kind of a unique situation. We're recommending such a condition, but I feel that this is more appropriate along their own subdivision lane than along the external part of their development on Mission Hill Lane. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, hey, Mike, did you consider much about the slopes, the steep slopes on that property? I'm just worried about the density with that disturbance.
Well, I say that there's really not much undisturbed at this point, unfortunately, so there's not much we can,
In the, because we're talking about the part in blue and green, right?
yeah, so this is the part that's being considered right now.
Right.
Yeah.
But looks like there's pretty steep slopes in that, and there's a 0.54 is the recommended disturbance within that area.
So what you're seeing here in these topography lines exist today. Or I imagine they exist today as shown. I mean, the property's already been graded, so there's really nothing to change at this point with the hillside
It
protection
already
area.
has been graded, is that what you said? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So the diagram in the packet is not accurate.
Yeah, if it's the hillside protection, the slope analysis, that was
Yeah.
done after the slope analysis was
Okay.
created. Or the topography that we have in our own system, in our GIS system is different.
Just for semantics and just to put it on the record, why is this having to come back before us? Did I miss that, or am I?
Well, the main, so the only part of this subdivision that is technically approved for concept plan right now is the 18 lots that surround Lantern Park Lane right now. So the 5 lots along Mission Hill Lane are new to the subdivision, but also a modification of the stormwater plan is a new change. And that's really, if a 5-lot subdivision by itself does not require concept plan approval, but we've had some issues in the past with a change to stormwater plans that have been pretty significant problems for adjacent property owners. So we don't want to make too big of a change to a stormwater plan post concept plan approval.
There were some comments about Chancery Court, that this property, that the plan had gone before Chancery Court, is that right? Is this prior to the development, the first phase development?
That was part of the 2022 concept plan that was ultimately withdrawn. It went to court, came back to the planning commission, was withdrawn by the applicant at that time. So they basically reverted back to the 2021.
So
Approval.
nothing that's being recommended, or none of this concept plan has anything to do with what was originally decided?
In 2022? No. I mean, it's similar in design, yes, but it's not related to the 2022. That concept plan was withdrawn.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on this one? So we have one more agenda item, and like I said, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. This is a similar use determination for off-road riding, motorized vehicles, mountain bikes, in the ag zone. Do you all want to discuss that now? Do you want to stay a couple extra minutes, or? I'll defer to the commission. Yes, it actually came before you all, and then it was postponed for staff to work with them to. Yes. So that's what we've done.
And I will say, I haven't talked to the applicant about these specific recommendations points. So they may not 100% agree with all of them. I don't know, we'll find out on Thursday. But the gist of it is that we are recommending approval. Kind of looked at it a little bit different way, as in like what kind of provisions do other uses that are uses permitted on view in the ag zone require, and how could those be kind of pieced together to create some kind of framework for this type of use. So for really some very basic criteria. And I'll be happy to go over any of them if anybody wants, but that's how we got to where we are.
I guess we will remain adjourned until Thursday, then just obviously making sure everybody shows up, because we got a tight quorum on Thursday, so don't forget.